A true warrior needs no sword. The iconic words spoken by the ex-Viking soldier Thors as he tosses aside his only weapon in midst of a battle with a group of mercenaries. As a young child, Thorfinn watched his father be pelted with arrows and die, as he threw away his one last chance of survival, trying to idealistically find a better way than to continue the cycle of violence he had known his entire life. But how was this any better? Thorfinn wound up devoting his entire life to vengeance in the pursuit of killing Askeladd for what had happened, pushing the words of Thor's to the back of his consciousness and only letting the rage and hatred guide him forward. But this is what the viewers wanted to see, right? It's a lot more fun to read a story filled with intense action and violence than it is to watch a man trying to live passively through life and working on a farm. Or is it? When asked about Vinland Saga in interviews, Makoto Yukimura once said that he wanted to find a way to create a protagonist that didn't go out looking for fights and didn't base his value on the fights that he had won. Instead, he wanted to create a character that actively tried to find a way to solve his problems without needing to fight. But to set the story in the Viking Age, an age where it was one of the most primal and violent times in human history, and also constantly challenging that character's identity by increasingly putting him in situations to where he would need to overcome it without making it about the fights, but also making Thorfinn not a coward, but a warrior. The irony is that the art of fighting without fighting cannot be achieved by somebody who is a complete pacifist. Without the knowledge of what strength and battle is, one would be incapable of having the bravery to stand before someone and refuse to engage. What I mean is, to grasp the full understanding of a fight, you have to have fought. Experience trumps knowledge that is learned vicariously. The genius of Thorfinn's character is that he had to hit extraordinary lows in order to come to the current philosophies that he has. There is a difference between someone running away from a fight that is a coward and somebody running away as a strategic measure to ensure his own survival and the survival of his opponent. Thorfinn is not running away from war, but rising above what the idea of war is. Thorfinn's philosophy comes from a mixture of what his father had told him as a child, but also from what his life experiences had built within him. Spoilers, by the way, from here on out for anybody that has not read the manga. But Thorfinn is robbed of his chance of revenge, and he is taken away and sold into slavery, and as such he effectively sees the dark bottom of the two polar ends of the human experience. His entire youth he spent in war, watching grown men kill, rob, and sexually abuse those that they conquer, and those that had no chance of fighting back. He gained a full understanding of what violence truly is, and what that is the ultimate ruling force in the world. Violence is what every human, every animal, every living thing understands. You don't mess with something that's bigger and stronger than you. The threat of violence can keep men good or keep them in fear. When a force is greater than you, you have no choice but to comply to it if it threatens violence. But by increasing his skills and learning within this kill or be killed environment, Thorfinn himself becomes a vicious fighter and killer, detaching himself from any kind of natural human empathy and learning what these kinds of men must become in order to do the things that they do. Afterwards, as a slave, Thorfinn experienced the other end of the spectrum, switching from the oppressor to the oppressed, feeling as though his life's purpose was gone and there was no point for him to continue to live. Thorfinn became an empty shell, but it was here, during the slave arc of the series, where Thorfinn began to understand what his father meant when he spoke of the plight of the true warrior. It was a combination between the haunting nightmare visions of those who he had slain without purpose or mercy, combined with the symbolism of what it means to be a farmer, to plant food, to create something as opposed to destroying it, how much harder it is to build than it is to tear down, that a sense of accomplishment that comes with growing life will always trump that of taking a life away. In understanding how people should not be living in order to just be subjugated and pushed underfoot by those that are stronger than them, but weak people must still become strong, and the strong then have a responsibility to make life better than it was before, to use their strength and experience to provide a better future rather than continuously trying to avenge the past. In my humble opinion, as all my videos are, only just my opinion, but the very fact that Thorfinn was able to experience and understand what war and slavery were from being fully immersed and forced into both of them, is exactly why he is the perfect person for dedicating his life to creating a world without war and without slavery. I think knowing how to fight is incredibly important. I would say it's an absolute necessity. You have to be able to defend yourself, and it's even better to be able to defend the ones that you love. Violence will not disappear, so knowing how to enact violence is something you need to have in your arsenal. But a true warrior's battle is not to battle, because that's the baseline. That's what you should already know. A true warrior's battle is trying to find a solution without fighting. The truth is that an egoic sense of self-righteousness is dangerous. You know where the most amount of egos live is in graveyards and hospitals, and in the Viking Age, I doubt they had very good medical care. With the knowledge and skill of combat in his back pocket, a true warrior then has the responsibility to overcome and use it only as a last resort. As violence is something that should be used as a measure of protection and defense, those often overuse and pedestalize the very idea of it, fantasizing about being the greatest warrior of all time, taking down all of your enemies. The desire to lash out physically is biologically embedded within men, because it's necessary for survival. We need to be able to be vicious in order to ensure the protection of our homestead or kill an animal for food, for all these survival purposes. There's a reason it exists within us, and that drive exists within all of us penis-having folk, where some part of us really does want to fight. But I think the transition between being a child and being an adult is recognizing the realities of that fighting, of what that violence amounts to. No longer is it an embellished fantasy, but it becomes a grim reality the more that you see it, and it is here that that shift should happen. But when dealing with the setting of Vinland Saga, we are in an age where the very gods that these men follow not only continue that embellishment, but encourage that they die fighting and will be rewarded in Valhalla for it. Now, this goes into a whole other aspect involving religion and its dangers when you believe that you have divine authority on your side. Stuff like this still persists today, but one of my favorite scenes in the entire manga is a chapter that takes place within the thoughts of an unnamed Viking soldier as he is bleeding out and about to die on the battlefield, spending his whole life fighting and believing in this reward of the afterlife, only to realize as he lies here, things are only getting darker and darker. No bright shining light is coming to gather him. No gods or Valkyries are descending upon him. No praise is being given to him. He only has the darkness. And as he wishes to warn his fellow soldiers, he can no longer speak, drifting further into the void of death. Realizing the futility of it all, when the answer on the other side is pure nothingness. And perhaps it might be hypocritical to say in order to rise above violence, you must understand violence, that you must know how to fight in order to find a way to properly overcome fighting. But that is the very nature of life, I feel. I feel if you analyzed your own life or anybody else's, you would find that it is full of contradictions all of the way through. It's not about consistency as much as it's about growth and learning over time. But here's the major problem, and the thing that I actively disagree with Thorfinn about. But despite my disagreement, I still respect him fully as a character. See, currently in the manga, on the trip to Vinland to establish a new community free from war and slavery, Thorfinn has refused to bring any weapons with him, meaning he and his loved ones would be at the mercy of any natives that wanted to attack him. Thorfinn believing that he can find that other way, that he can communicate and form an understanding without fighting his true warrior's battle. The issue lies in, no matter how honorable and understanding that you might be as a person, someone else may not be. It doesn't matter how bad you don't want to fight, or that won't stop somebody else from attacking you. You still have to expect that someday somebody might try to break into your home and harm you or your loved ones. There is evil in the world and those that embrace the savagery of the law of violence. Thorfinn believes that simply having weapons instills a belief that there is an incentive to use them, whereas having none leaves you vulnerable. It's the moral conundrum of the entire manga, beautifully and very simply expressed within this current arc, and I want Thorfinn to be right, but I know in my heart that he has pushed the line into becoming a bit foolish. But even though I disagree with him currently, I'm still rooting for him. I truly believe that there is a time and place for fighting, but I also agree that as an experienced fighter, finding solutions around it is a much harder and much more noble battle than the physical battle itself, and that creating is more difficult than destroying. It takes longer, it requires more knowledge, and is far more important for the progression of life and that hope of peace. Thorfinn exemplifies the meaning of a true warrior needs no sword, and has gone those extra steps further than his father Thor has ever had. There may be a time that combat is necessary, but until that point, I want to see what Thorfinn can accomplish by the end of Vinland Saga. And if he too is destined to crash and burn like Thor's, he can still die proud knowing that he spent as much of his life as he could working towards his ultimate goal and not standing down in the face of these unstoppable odds. But anyways guys, that has been my little analysis on Thorfinn's character and some of the themes of Vinland Saga. What do you think about Thorfinn's journey and his current philosophy? Please put all that in the comments below. Also, be sure to like and comment on the video because it does help in the algorithm. I would really appreciate it if you did. And if you'd like to support the channel on that deeper level, check out my Patreon and merch store in the description below, along with all my various social media links. Also, maybe subscribe to the channel because I'd love to have you back here for some more anime and manga discussions. But that's it for now, guys. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you next time.